Come on. Come on. The YouTubes are fired up. Now we're just waiting on CouchBot. That means it's time for the daily feedback loop. I'm so glad to have you along. Oh, man. Boy, I got to tell you. Better living through chemistry, kids. Chris Courtney, new Pragmatic. I feel a lot better. Oh, man, I feel so much better. Still a lot of healing to happen here, but it's definitely better to be here and healing than where we were on in pain. So back to the design things. I'm super excited because Chelsea's turned around her competitive analysis doc, and I'm watching the video here. That was really weird. The encoder keeps overloading, so I'm gonna take a look at that. But we are looking out for. Well, what's funny is Chelsea has submitted her overview, but I need to go back to look at her research. So I need to pull that up from her. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Maybe that didn't get submitted. Okay, so we're going to pull up our competitive matrix as well. It's kind of weird because I was honestly surprised to see her competitive analysis because we haven't reviewed the competitive research yet. But this is kind of interesting. Oh yeah. I talked with Chelsea last week on. I guess this would be. We spoke on Friday. Yeah. So we spoke on Friday, and her competitive analysis was still in progress. So wanted to give everybody a peek into that as well. But let's go ahead and we're going to wait to see if CouchBot fires. CouchBot has fired. And faster encoding preset. I'm going to hop in here to settings real quick and see if I can get this encoding thing sorted out. Output. Oh, encoder. I've only got one encoder available. Sorry there. Enable and see if just super fast. How about ultra fast? See, do we break everything by putting on ultra fast? No, it says encoding overload. It says encoding overload. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But now that went away. So maybe that will maybe with the encoder ultra fast. Well, no, it just came back. Still getting that same error. It's also using like 63% of the CPU. Yeah, me no likey. I'll have to figure that out. But I digress because it is time to get this underway. So yeah, I'm just watching the encoder for a second. I just want to, before we shove this out of the station, because I always clip this part. I'm just watching the CPU usage. I don't really want it to peak over, say, 60%, because I've got to run other programs while we're doing this. Let's shove this out of the station. Let's just go. Greens, one and all. Chris Courtney here. New Pragmatic. It is time for the feedback loop. We got a light load for Friday. Super glad to be back. By the way, yesterday was weird. Let's just call it what it was. Yesterday was weird. But today Chelsea's in here, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because why look at my face when we can be looking at like analysis? And I like competitive analysis. I like to have the opportunity to look at distilled information. So often we go through the process of convergent and divergent. Oh, actually, I did my hands the wrong way. So divergent going out and then convergent coming back in. We go through this process where we need to go discover, and when we go discover, we're stretching out, we're being divergent, and then we need to bring it to a focus. We're being convergent and coming back in. We go through this over and over and over again in design, and this is one of the first real moments that we do it. So in the new UX program, we do this a couple of times over. The first time it's just really focused on doing initial observations. Basically, think about it like you're pitching a new client, okay? You get a client, they say, hey, I want to do X, and you're like, wow, I don't know much about X. I'm going to have to ask a lot of questions and go maybe observe some people and then maybe look around at the competitors, and then maybe I can use all that information together to come up with an initial pitch. Like, here's what I would recommend. So Active Weekends is the first project, and it's written around the concern of COVID. And when I was creating this new set of exercises, I felt this tug. I had no idea which direction COVID was moving, and it seemed like it was going away, and that was great. But there was still this curiosity of what will be the lasting impact in the way that we interact with each other. So even though it was, quote, going away, like the cases in New York were going down, the cases in Chicago were going down, there was still this concern of, are we going to act the way we did before? And this is where, observational research would be really valuable, especially if you were going to do things that involved other people. And rather than focus this on a tech solution out of the gate, I wanted to make this something where you could actually apply it to day-to-day interactions. So Active Weekends is a project built around that. Active Weekends is basically the softball leagues and the basketball leagues that you see, the company intramural leagues that you see in the parks in the summer and fall. That's what Active Weekends is. It's one of those organizations. Here in Chicago, we have like the Chicago Sports and Social Club. As Chelsea points out, in Austin, they have Austin Sports and Social Club. They have ATX Sports and Adventures and Naked Sports Social. I don't know any of these organizations personally, but they're in Austin, Texas, where she's at. So the thing about this project is every city or town that you're in has one or many of these organizations, and all of them are dealing with a new reality. Sometimes that is, and that's going to change from place to place. Like when Chelsea first joined the program, Austin was not a hotspot. 2 weeks later, Austin's a hotspot, and suddenly there's great concern about doing things like, I don't know, playing softball outside. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to put ourselves in a situation where we can research the problem and come up with an initial set of recommendations. This is very much problem solving and trying to spot what the problem really is, while also being aware of the market around the business that you're operating in. This is a little different than pure UX. This is not really focused on, okay, hey, we're going to create a digital solution for this. Not every solution that you're going to have a problem for is going to be able to be solved digitally. Some of this is very much service design. So I think this is a great opportunity to get in, have something that has some immediate need, which is COVID, and put your skills to work. So essentially, Chelsea started off doing observational research. She went in and did stakeholder interviews. Then she did a competitive matrix. And in the competitive matrix, she basically studied the various organizations, looking at what their main products were, the features, who their target audience was, what their competitive advantages might be. I'm going to pull this out just a bit so we can kind of, yeah, there we go. And then she gave us a short summary. She also did heuristics, and the heuristics actually proved out to be pretty important in this particular case, because one of the things that she discovered along the way is there were groups that were changing how they were organizing, but because of the way that their sites were set up, it was very hard to see what their COVID-related options were. They were just kind of buried in the site, and that's a big problem because customers might be coming to your organization looking for help, and if you're offering the help but they can't find it, it's the same as not offering the help. Okay, so running a heuristics test and getting like, let's take a look at the heuristics test that she ran on Austin Social Club. Oh, I guess this is Naked Social Club. Oh, actually, it's all of them. It's all of them. So she's got, and then ATX. So it's all in the same document, and that's fine. So was it easy to tell when a task is executed? Yes. And this, by the way, is built upon the Nielsen heuristics. So it's like just a list of 10 things you're going to go through, and you can tell. You can look at the fail points. So like most of these that are yes, that just means it works. Controls, yes. Can the user fall back to a place where they can search for an answer? No, there isn't a search feature, which is definitely a disadvantage for people who want to find answers quickly. So we go down. Upon arrival, does the platform match initial user expectations? No, their homepage doesn't really describe the business well. I'd expect most people to have a preconceived notion about the business already. As the user works through the platform, do the components behave predictably? No, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure what no, I'm not sure means, but you've marked it as a no. Can the user fall back? This was only presented to me when a page had an error. So like search was only available here on Austin Sports and Social Club when like it was like I can't find what you're looking for. Does the platform helpfully guide the users away from potential failure? No, and their unscheduled leagues could have had larger text and a button to take users to an active sport. Also, some of the pages didn't provide helpful information. They probably shouldn't be active on the website. So this is like they've got gremlins that they might not even know about, like just dead pages that are still visible, and that's a problem. You definitely don't want things that are half-baked kind of hanging out off to the side. And sometimes that happens, okay? I get it, but those things shouldn't be easy to get to. I mean, everybody's got a draft feature. Like, turn the draft feature on, and then, like, it's hidden away. Should user experience failure? Does the system inform the user why? No, some of their pages are blank, and there's no explanation provided. Yeah, that's really bad. So she's definitely gone through the process. She knows like kind of how these things are operating. The site isn't very and she's got key observations for the heuristics here as well. So this is like it's really good to kind of see. She's saying that Austin Sports and Social is the primary. And then the secondary would be ATX, and then the other competitors is probably this Naked Sports Social. Although it looks like we might have, I think ATX got in here twice. Yeah, ATX got in here twice. So I mean, we just kill that one. We're fine. Overall, though, she's done a very good job working through studying the competition, which brings us back over to the actual pitch. And I know this is a Google Doc. Chelsea's just getting started in the program. One of the key things that I point out in the exercise, I'm not concerned with visuals right now. I want what the recommendation would be, and this recommendation needs to have some punch to it. Needs to be I want to quickly get it across to the client. The worst thing you can do is walk into a meeting with the client and say, and today I'm going to talk to you about the active weekends COVID alternatives. First, we went to a park, and in the park we observed people walking around. We wanted to get a sense of how people were interacting with each other just on their own in a park. And then we talked to, like, you don't take them in a blow by blow, like go right to the point. Like, active weekends should consider co-ed virtual events and esports, and including co-ed virtual events and esports leagues into its offerings. That's like right off the top. Active weekends should offer leagues in the fall with changes to comply with health guidelines. Active weekends could shorten seasons and cut down on the number of people on a team to decrease risk of exposure to COVID-19. Some leagues could turn into sports drills and could turn sports drills into competitions. Think of Smedley, and there was the Hanna-Barbera had this. Well, actually, it's a Battle of the Network Stars. Battle of the Network Stars. Perfect example. You could turn it into Battle of the Corporate Stars if you wanted to. But the great thing about track and field competitions and things like feats of agility, feats of strength. You could do what's the Seinfeld skit? It's not Christmas. It's Festivus, coming in from the far corner. Karen Courtney, Festivus for the rest of us. But you can have Festivus. Chelsea's just told us that we can have Festivus for this. That's great. Like, I can see the banner on the website already. But the whole point here is there are going to be organizations that still want to have competitions, but you can't play. You might not be able to play basketball. You don't want to like pass the ball to somebody and they, oh, I'm going to catch your COVID because I'm going to literally catch the ball that you just touched. But if everybody had their own ball and you were doing shooting drills, that's okay. Or soccer drills. I still believe that soccer is a great alternative because outside of the goalie, nobody's supposed to touch the soccer ball. And I got to be honest with you, I can't see a bunch of corporate people doing headers anyway. So it's mostly a play the game with your foot type thing. But I also know that like people just collide into each other playing soccer because, or I hate the word soccer, football. But we collide into each other because we're just uncoordinated. It's a beautiful game though. So I love these recommendations. I think that like there's some information in here that I think you probably want to simplify. The other really cool thing that she mentioned, and I don't know if we get into the details for this. She's got some key observations. PPE dependent on environment for young adults. Sports are allowed. And so flag football, which is an active weekend, which is a sport active weekends hopes to offer in the fall, involves being outside and touching a communal object. According to local, state, and CDC rules, sports leagues are cleared to operate. However, players are urged to wear protective face coverings and monitor their own health status. Active weekends must notify all participants of the dangers in participating in leagues during a health crisis. It's also urged that active weekends offer sanitation equipment at game locations. So there's a need for so that you need PPE, like for if you're the ref. I'm sure the refs out there wearing a shield and gloves. Is there a branding opportunity there where everybody gets a shield that's sponsored by the local bar and grill? One thing I like about the level which that Chelsea moved to here was studying CDC guidelines was not in the prompt. Okay, I said go study the competition and look at what they're doing. Okay, But she took it further and said, I want to know what the local health regulations and guidelines and CDC guidelines are. So she went and studied that. Bringing that into the fold gives us a lot more authority. Okay, I'm not just telling you what I think you should do. We're also putting this against what the official guidelines are, and that's a very responsible thing. Even I would feel much better going with a team if they were putting this sort of detail into it than somebody who had just told me, yeah, I think you should do esports. Yeah, I think you should do track and field competitions. You know, layering in the CDC, even if we all know it, even if we all kind of assume that's what I thought the CDC would say, the fact that it's in here in the document, I think is very, very important. So who the active weekend players are: 80% are adults, 20% are children who participated in sports activities over the summer. Fastest growing segment of users, and then there are corporations and teams. 50 businesses field teams with active weekends year round. So she's taking that basically directly from the stakeholder. The stakeholder's kind of, here's our demographic. There's no need for her to go ferret that out. Like I don't need to run a survey to tell. I don't need to run a survey to tell the owner of the company who their customers are if they have the statistics. Okay. And then the competition. And, you have identified 3 different leagues. And one of those leagues, Naked Sports Social, has suspended all of its leagues until further notice. They just are not going to participate. Where Austin Sports Social is doing the leagues, but also doing virtual events. And I think that's probably that is what the competition's doing, but I still think you've identified some other ways that you could still do in-person events while cutting down the contact, and that was my main push. I was looking for what else can we do that isn't related to, like, what can I do if I can't play flag football? Can you give me some options? Can you stretch out what I'm thinking about? And a lot of these companies, they may do it for one season, okay? Because a vaccine may be around next year, and you might not have to do this anymore. Some companies will discover something that works really well. Like, there's some people that just don't want to play team sports, so this gives them a new quiver to break out later to address a broader market. You've potentially made this more open, especially the esports, the virtual events. There are people that aren't sports people that now could get involved in company outings and company events, because basically they're hiring active weekends to come in and facilitate a company event that's available for it's very hard for somebody in a wheelchair to play flag football, but they could play bingo. They could do trivia games. So I think you're broadening the opportunity, and I think it's super smart. So with that said, when we talk about this, I'm going to have to come over to find my Figma. When we talk about the one-sheeter, we're looking for something along the lines of this. And in this run sheeter, I'm reading run and sheeter. It's here's our main recommendation. Here's the observations, here's the demographic, and here's the competition. This is basically the 4 zones that you have, okay? So you have the zones. I am looking for you to find a way to edit these down. I did believe that this was getting a little long, but I think it's important. Honestly, this is not that long. Okay, you're over 2 paragraphs, but I would like to get this edited down, tighten. I mean, what we're doing is we're just barely tightening it up. But it's a great list of initial recommendations. I do, the missing component here, obviously, Chelsea, is the presentation. I want to get us into a habit of thinking about, okay, I've got this list of recommendations, or I've got this work to present. I need to now do it. And that's where, turning on your FaceTime cam, recording you talking about, here are our initial recommendations for your alternatives. This is going to pay off at interview time. This is going to pay off when you're sitting in front of a team and presenting back the work. A big part of design is the presentation of the work. And I realize that you haven't moved a pixel yet. You haven't gone in and built out a wireframe or move, an interface and decided how something should move. But you've already you're redesigning how people stand next to one another. You're redesigning how people are going to interact with one another, and that is design. That's what we have to get. That's the understanding we have to get through right now. This is design, and if this is design, we don't refer to design as something that happens the moment that we move and create our first wireframe. Okay, so I think this is really strong, really strong. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be moving to something more like this, and I want us to think about, okay, what would this look like? This is our initial recommendations. What sort of image would we throw on a screen if we were making a presentation to, maybe 10 people? Maybe we go over to the Active Weekends office and we got their refs and whatnot sitting around, and we present to them our findings, like, the important stuff. Basically, I'm going to shift this around so I can just go back and forth. So your initial recommendations is co-ed, virtual events, and esports. That's slide 1. So this would be co-ed, events, and esports, and that line height needs to be significantly taller. Let's go, something like that. So if this is the headline, what's the image that goes with that? Okay, because this is not hard to design. Once you have a simple template for these presentations, and you can think about, okay, here's the visual I want to show with this. This becomes pretty simple, but you have to put it together. Okay. Now, I haven't asked for you to put this together. I gave you the option. I said, okay, it's either going to be this or something like this. We've done this, which is great. Next time through, though, we're going to do something like this. So I want you thinking about, okay, so if there's a co-ed event, what would I put behind here to show and get people thinking in that regard? And then if the continued thing, if it was esports, what would it be? And then if it was not tug of war, but track and field, like what visual would I use? I wouldn't use Usain Bolt here, because that isn't the customer, but I might use like couple of guys that did not look like track stars in a race. Like, this is where stock photography and a place like Unsplash comes into the mix. Or maybe you use illustrations, and we're talking about free pick. We're talking about building presentations quickly, not investing a lot of time into them. Okay, because again, especially in a situation like this is a pitch. This is not the I have secured the gig and we're moving forward. I'm pitching them, hoping that they will use our agency, hoping they will use our services. But I really think you did a really good job here. I might tighten it up a little bit, but I really think that you're springboarding into the schools project from this point. So yeah, folks, that's really all I've got for today. Although I did want to, Lisa had a couple of questions, and I want to take an opportunity. She was working on alignment issues, and when you're aligning Figma files, like you've got these guides, and aligning frames together in Figma should be really simple. Notice how if I just drag this close, it immediately gives me equal spacing. It kind of stops me from moving forward. There's just enough tension to stop me here. And then if I move this up, it will align all three of those together. That is only possible if I have, let's see. Now I could, let's go into, I know there's a way to turn it off. I always keep it on, but I want to make sure that we can, so it says show ruler, show outlines, mask outlines. Actually, let's have that selected. So you can obviously, oh, well, there's tidy up, which is here. And I think with tidy up, what you do is you highlight all of them, and you come up here to arrange, and you say tidy up. And did you notice tidy up basically just cleaned this up? It gave me equal spacing here, but it did nothing for that. So that's one thing that's kind of annoying. The other thing that often bugs me is like this. And let's move these back down here for a second. And you should get a sense of like, just, you know, you see the equal 207, 207, 207. Like, it wants to help you line that up. But the big problem I have is as you go down, so this is key 1, that's key 2, personas is down, like, it moves down. It's really weird. And then, you know, because I've copied important follow here, these are just all out of sorts. They don't make any sense. The one thing, there's a tool that you can use. We'll highlight summary. So I believe that's going to have all of these. So yeah, that's all of these in a row. There's a tool to reorder these, and it's a plugin, reverse layer order. And what that does is it puts summary now on top. Questions, it's weird because questions is down, let's see, questions is down here. So I would actually need to drag that all the way to the bottom. You see what I mean? It's like it flipped it, but it didn't flip it enough. So here's summary. Let's just follow it through. So summary, important 1, important 2, important follow. So important follow is all the way down here. That's not where it should be. So I can just move it down to questions. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this to move in order. So as we highlight over, here's summary, important 1, important 2, key, persona, competition, important follow, questions. So now it moves in order. But if we just undo that for a second, so I'm going to move these back to where they were before we hit the reorder plugin. That's how we started. That's how we started. And now if you move down, you go from competition to personas to key 1. It's like it literally moves in reverse order. And that's no good. That's no good. So again, I'm going to highlight this, going to go to plugins, going to go to reverse layer order. That takes care of a lot of it. But then from here, we need questions. Questions is at the bottom, which is not great. Personas, competition, questions, important follow should be there. And summary, which is, summary isn't at the bottom, should be at the top. So now it's in an order that makes sense. If for whatever reason if I moved these all out of sorts and kind of got them all borked up, I could come through and highlight them all and then utilize these tools. I'm going to use tidy up again. And tidy up, it's amazing. Tidy up worked, but it also moved a lot of stuff out of order. So I'm going to Control Z there, and now I'm going to say distribute vertical spacing. So that's very good. And then I'm going to say distribute horizontal spacing, and that didn't work. that didn't work. So distributing horizontal spacing there was the wrong idea. I should just use align left, and that pulls everything into alignment. So Lisa, I hope that is a little helpful in showing you some of the ways that you can help clean up the files. I know these Figma files, they can get really unwieldy, but I did want to take a second. You had a really great question yesterday, and I didn't feel like I got back to it, so I want to take a second and answer that one today. We're going to check the list and make sure that we're clear. It doesn't look like the only thing I got here is Luigi checking in feedback loop with his updates for daily stand up, but that's all right. Luigi, we love you. We will catch up with that later, and that's going to be it for this edition of the feedback loop. Yeah, see there. Good times. Anyway, if you have questions, if you have comments, it's going to be a fun weekend. I am releasing some new material now that my face is working again. I'm releasing some new material this weekend, so I'm super excited. Keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's nice to be back. Even though I never really left, I wasn't really here. Now I'm back. Chris Courtney, New Pragmatic. I will see you again on Monday, except for Chelsea, Melanie, and somebody else is on the list. Oh, Kara. Of course, Kara. Anyway, Chelsea, Kara, Melanie, I will see you all in a little bit. See ya.